What is going on, Dodgers Nation? Buckle up, because the news I'm about to lay on you is absolutely explosive. And if you're not already sitting down, you better grab a chair right now. The Los Angeles Dodgers just made a move that has the entire baseball world buzzing. And trust me when I tell you, this is only the beginning of what promises to be one of the most insane off seasons in franchise history. We're talking about a World Series hero making his triumphant return, blockbuster trade scenarios that could completely reshape this roster, and front office chess moves so calculated that opposing general managers around the league are watching with a mixture of respect and absolute terror. The Dodgers aren't just sitting on their hands celebrating back-to-back championships. No, no, no. They're actively working the phones, exploring every possible angle, and positioning themselves to potentially pull off moves that nobody saw coming. And by the time we're done breaking down everything that happened in the last 48 hours, you're going to understand exactly why this organization remains light years ahead of everyone else in baseball. So, if you're ready to dive deep into the Miguel Rojas signing, the shocking Teoscar Hernandez trade rumors, and the potential blockbuster deals brewing behind the scenes, then let's get into it. And before we do, make sure you smash that like button right now, subscribe if you haven't already, and drop a comment below telling me what you think about all this madness. Your engagement keeps this channel growing and helps the algorithm push our content to more passionate Dodger fans just like you. Now let's get to the news that has Dodger Stadium absolutely rocking right now. Late Wednesday night, the Los Angeles Dodgers announced that they have officially re-signed Miguel Rojas to a one-year deal worth $5 million. And let me tell you something, this isn't just another roster move. This isn't just filling a backup infielder spot. This is the return of a World Series hero, a clubhouse leader, and quite possibly one of the most clutch performers to ever wear Dodger blue. Miguel Rojas is coming back for his final dance, and the baseball gods are smiling down on Los Angeles right now because this is exactly the kind of move that championship organizations make. Miguel Rojas is going to turn 37 years old in February, and he's already announced that the 2026 season will be his last in professional baseball. This is it, folks. The final chapter, the last ride. And what makes this story even more beautiful is that the Dodgers aren't just giving him one more year to chase another ring. They're setting him up for life after baseball with a front office position in player development and personnel once he hangs up his cleats. That's class. That's how you treat your players. That's why elite talent wants to come to Los Angeles and why veterans are willing to take team-friendly deals to be part of this organization. Now, let me paint you a picture of who Miguel Rojas is and why this signing matters infinitely more than just adding another body to the 40-man roster. This is a guy who embodies everything the Dodgers have become over the last two seasons: heart, grit, leadership, versatility, and most importantly, the ability to deliver in the biggest moments when the pressure is at its absolute peak and lesser players crumble under the weight of expectations. You want to know what Miguel Rojas means to this franchise? Let me take you back to Game 5 of the World Series. Top of the ninth inning, the Dodgers are staring elimination right in the face. Jeff Hoffman is on the mound for Toronto, dealing absolute filth, looking completely unhittable. The season is slipping away. The championship dreams are dying. And Miguel Rojas, who hadn't started a game in over a month, who hadn't recorded a hit in 30 days, who most casual fans probably forgot was even on the roster, steps up to the plate as a pinch hitter. And what does he do? He absolutely crushes a home run that ties the game and resurrects the Dodgers from what looked like certain death. The stadium erupts. The dugout goes absolutely ballistic. Grown men are crying. And Miguel Rojas, cool as ice, circles the bases like a man who knew destiny was calling his name. That moment alone would have cemented his legacy in Dodger lore forever. But wait, it gets even better. Bottom of the ninth inning, Rojas is now playing second base. And here comes a ground ball. He's stumbling. He's off balance. His feet are all over the place. He looks like a newborn giraffe trying to figure out how legs work. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa is charging home from third base. And in that split second, most players would panic. Most players would rush the throw and sail it over the catcher's head, allowing the winning run to score. Not Miguel Rojas. Despite looking completely discombobulated, despite having no business making this play, he somehow gathers himself, sets his feet, and fires an absolute laser to home plate to nail the runner and keep the game tied. The Dodgers would go on to win in extra innings and eventually capture the World Series championship, and Miguel Rojas cemented his place in franchise history with what might legitimately be the greatest single inning any Dodger has ever had in the postseason. I'm not exaggerating even a little bit. The context, the stakes, the sheer improbability of both the home run and the defensive play happening in the same inning, that's the stuff of legend. That's the kind of performance that gets talked about for generations. Now, some people are out here legitimately debating whether that home run is the greatest in Dodgers history. Look, I'm not going to go that far because Kirk Gibson's iconic limp-off homer in the 1988 World Series exists in the collective consciousness of baseball. Freddie Freeman's walk-off grand slam in Game 1 of this year's World Series was absolutely magical. But Miguel Rojas' blast is absolutely in the conversation for top 3, maybe top 5 all time when you consider the moment and what was at stake. Without that home run, there's no championship. Without that throw to home plate, there's no extra innings. Miguel Rojas literally saved the Dodgers season in the span of about 15 minutes, and you cannot put a price tag on that kind of heroism. And here's what makes this signing even more special beyond just the nostalgia and the emotional connection. Miguel Rojas still brings legitimate value to this roster. He was a finalist for the Utility Gold Glove in the National League last season, which means his defensive versatility and excellence are still elite level. He can play second base, shortstop, and third base, giving Dave Roberts maximum flexibility with his lineup and defensive alignments. And that matters tremendously when you're trying to navigate a 162-game season plus a deep postseason run. The Dodgers have been talking about second base being a bit of a question mark heading into 2026, with Tommy Edman and Hye-Seong Kim expected to share time there. Adding Miguel Rojas to that mix gives you veteran leadership, defensive excellence, and someone who has been there and done that in the biggest moments. He's not just filling a roster spot. He's providing insurance, mentorship, and championship experience that you literally cannot acquire any other way. Let's talk about his impact in that clubhouse for a second, because this is absolutely crucial to understanding why the Dodgers keep winning. Miguel Rojas is more than just a utility infielder. He's a mentor, he's a leader, he's the guy who keeps everyone grounded and focused when things get chaotic. Remember when Mookie Betts decided to make that bold transition from right field to shortstop? Who was right there guiding him through every step of the process, sharing defensive tips, helping him adjust to a completely new position? Miguel Rojas. The man is basically a player coach already, and there are legitimate whispers around baseball circles that he could eventually become a manager someday, possibly even managing the Dodgers down the line. Dave Roberts has hinted that he might call it a career after the 2029 season, which means the timeline actually works out perfectly for Miguel Rojas to stay in the organization through player development, work his way through the coaching ranks, and eventually take over as skipper. Can you imagine Miguel Rojas managing the Dodgers in 2030 or 2031? That would be absolutely perfect, and it shows you the kind of long-term thinking that separates this organization from everyone else in baseball. Miguel Rojas speaks Spanish fluently, which means he can connect with Latin American players and help them adjust to life in Los Angeles and Major League Baseball. We've seen him giving advice to Shohei Ohtani despite the language barrier, because as Miguel himself would tell you, the language of baseball is universal. Having someone like Rojas who can bridge cultural gaps and share wisdom from his 14 years in the big leagues is invaluable, and you cannot quantify that kind of impact on a spreadsheet. You know what they say? It's one thing for a coach or manager to tell you how to play the game. These are guys who played years or even decades ago. The game has evolved. The strategies have changed. But when a current player, someone who's grinding through the same 162-game season you are, someone who's in the batting cage with you every single day, when that person gives you advice, you listen, you absorb it, you respect it on a completely different level. That's the Miguel Rojas effect, and that's why this $5 million investment is legitimately one of the smartest moves the Dodgers could have made this offseason. We gave Miguel some playful grief about those Van Cleef and Arpels necklaces and bracelets he wears, but you know what? That man has done more business for that jewelry company and for the Dodgers brand than anyone could have imagined. He's become a cultural icon, and bringing him back for his final season is not just good baseball. It's good business, good karma, and the right thing to do for a player who gave everything he had when this team needed him most. Now, speaking of roster moves and potential shakeups, let's shift gears and talk about something that has Dodger fans absolutely divided right now. Is Teoscar Hernandez on the trading block? Because according to multiple reports, the Dodgers are at least exploring the possibility of moving their right fielder before the season starts, and the winter meetings in Orlando are coming up in just a few days. If you've been paying attention to how Andrew Friedman operates, you know that the Dodgers move carefully and deliberately, never making emotional decisions, always thinking 3 steps ahead. And when it comes to Teoscar Hernandez, this could be one of the most fascinating storylines of the entire offseason. Let's lay out the facts here so everyone understands the situation. Teoscar Hernandez is 33 years old and just signed a 3-year, $66 million deal with the Dodgers last offseason. He's got 2 years remaining on that contract, which means he's going to make $12 million in 2025 and $14.5 million in 2026, with a $15 million option for 2027 that includes a $6.5 million buyout. $16 million of that total is deferred, which gives the Dodgers some financial flexibility. But here's the key point that everyone needs to understand. A player in the final 2 or 3 years of their contract becomes extremely tradable. They're in that sweet spot where they still have significant value, but aren't so expensive that teams are scared to take on the salary. Now, let's be crystal clear about what Teoscar Hernandez has meant to this organization over the last 2 seasons. The man has been an absolute warrior and a consummate professional. He hit 33 home runs and drove in 99 runs in 2024, which earned him that 3-year contract. He followed that up with 25 homers and 89 RBIs last season. He's smashed 8 postseason home runs over the last 2 years combined. And here's the most important statistic of all. The Dodgers have won the World Series both years that Teoscar has been on the roster. You absolutely cannot argue with that kind of success. The man is a proven winner and a fantastic clubhouse presence. But here's where things get complicated, and this is where Andrew Friedman has to put on his general manager hat and make decisions based on cold, hard analysis rather than sentiment and emotion. Teoscar Hernandez is not a good right fielder anymore. I'm not trying to be disrespectful or harsh. I'm just stating facts that anyone who watched Dodger games last season can confirm. His defense in the outfield has become a genuine liability. We watched him all season long struggling to track down fly balls, dropping routine catches, and generally looking uncomfortable out there. Father Time is undefeated in sports, and at 33 years old, Teoscar's range and ability to cover ground in right field just aren't what they used to be. Maybe he's better suited for left field at this point in his career, where the defensive responsibilities aren't quite as demanding. Maybe he's a designated hitter now, someone who can focus purely on offense without having to worry about defense. But starting the season with him as your everyday right fielder is a risk the Dodgers might not be willing to take, especially when you're trying to defend back-to-back championships and every single game matters. This is where the trade rumors start to make perfect sense from a roster construction standpoint. Imagine if the Dodgers could flip Teoscar Hernandez to the Cleveland Guardians. Think about the fit there for a second. He'd slot right into the middle of that lineup alongside Jose Ramirez, giving Cleveland the power bat they desperately need to compete in a tough American League Central Division. In return, the Dodgers could acquire Steven Kwan, one of the best contact hitters and outfielders in the entire league. Suddenly, the Dodgers' outfield defense improves dramatically. You put Kwan in left field, where his Gold Glove caliber defense plays up. You move Andy Pages over to right field, where his strong arm is better utilized. Tommy Edman can play some center field when needed. And meanwhile, Miguel Rojas, Hye-Sung Kim, and maybe another acquisition handle second base duties. It actually all fits together pretty nicely from a roster construction perspective. And that's why the rumors exist. I'm not saying the Dodgers should trade Teoscar. I'm not even saying they will trade him. But the fact that they're exploring it tells you everything you need to know about how this front office operates. Andrew Friedman doesn't get emotional about these decisions. He's not swayed by sentimentality or the fact that a guy has been a good teammate and contributed to championships. He looks at the roster, identifies weaknesses, and makes calculated moves to improve the team. That's why the Dodgers have been so dominant for over a decade now. They're willing to make the tough calls that other organizations shy away from because they're scared of the backlash. The other thing to remember, and this is critically important, is that the Dodgers have built an incredible clubhouse culture over the last few years. There are no bad apples, no drama queens, no selfish players who put individual statistics ahead of team success. When you've got something that special, when you've built a championship culture that produces back-to-back titles, you have to be extremely careful about who you bring in and who you let go. The devil you know versus the devil you don't, right? Maybe that's why the Dodgers are so methodical about trades and free agent signings. They don't want to upset the chemistry that has led to unprecedented success. Every player they bring in has to fit that mold, has to embrace the team-first mentality, has to be willing to sacrifice personal glory for collective achievement. That's non-negotiable in this organization, and it's why they take their time making moves even when fans are screaming for action. But if they do decide to move on from Teoscar, who fills that void in the lineup and in the clubhouse? Well, that brings us to the next name that's generating serious buzz in Dodger circles. Brendan Donovan from the St. Louis Cardinals. Remember this name because we talked about him extensively at the trade deadline last season, and now he's back on the Dodgers' radar in a major way. The Cardinals are in complete rebuild mode, tearing everything down to the studs and looking to accumulate young talent and prospects, which means quality major league players like Donovan are suddenly available for the right price. Brendan Donovan is exactly the type of player the Dodgers love to acquire. He's a Swiss Army knife who can play second base, shortstop, and left field with legitimate defensive competence at all three positions. He won a Gold Glove in 2022, so you know he's got the defensive chops to play multiple spots without becoming a liability. He's got some pop in his bat too, averaging about 10 home runs per season over the last 4 years. Last season, he hit .287 with 10 homers and 50 RBIs in 118 games. Those aren't superstar numbers that are going to win MVP awards, but they're solid, consistent production from a guy who gives you maximum roster flexibility. But here's the real kicker, the reason why Andrew Friedman's eyes probably light up when Brendan Donovan's name comes up in trade discussions. He's under team control for the next 3 seasons. He cannot become a free agent, which means the Dodgers would have cost certainty and wouldn't have to worry about him walking away in free agency next offseason or the year after. That's gold, people. That's exactly the kind of player Andrew Friedman salivates over. Young, controllable talent on reasonable contracts who can contribute immediately while still having upside for growth. Donovan made about $5 million last season through arbitration, which is an absolute bargain for what he brings to the table in terms of versatility and production. And here's where it gets really interesting from a trade construction standpoint. The rumor floating around baseball circles is that the Dodgers would send Hye-Sung Kim to the Cardinals in exchange for Brendan Donovan. Now, that's fascinating because it would strongly suggest that the Dodgers don't believe Kim is ready to be an everyday player at the major league level, at least not right now. Remember, Kim came over from Korea with a lot of hype and significant expectations, but he only played about 70 games last season and never really found his footing or established himself as a reliable contributor. The Dodgers started him in the minors because they felt the game was too fast for him initially. They even had him playing outfield down in AAA, just trying to find a spot for him somewhere on the big league roster. Eventually, he came up and played some infield, but he never really seized the opportunity and forced his way into the everyday lineup. If the Dodgers are willing to move Kim for Donovan straight up, that tells you everything you need to know about how they view his future with the organization. They're not convinced he's part of the long-term plan, at least not in a significant role. And honestly, acquiring Donovan makes a ton of sense from multiple angles. He's a left-handed bat, which gives you balance in the lineup against right-handed pitching. He can play left field every day. If the Dodgers strike out on bigger names like Jason Dominguez or Steven Kwan, he can handle second base alongside Miguel Rojas and Tommy Edman in a three-way platoon. He's versatile, reliable, cost-controlled, and fits the Dodger organizational philosophy perfectly. This is what makes the winter meetings so absolutely fascinating every single year. The Dodgers don't typically make the splashy, headline-grabbing moves that generate massive social media buzz. They're not the team throwing money around recklessly at the trade deadline or getting into bidding wars with 20 other general managers over the same free agent. Instead, they operate carefully and quietly, targeting a handful of specific players they know will fit the culture and improve the roster in meaningful ways. Andrew Friedman isn't about to just throw cash at problems and hope they magically solve themselves. Think about last year's trade deadline as a perfect example. The Dodgers didn't make any massive splashes that had people losing their minds on Twitter. They picked up players like Jack Flaherty, who provided solid innings but wasn't exactly a game changer. But you know what? The biggest move was probably acquiring Brent Karras from Tampa Bay, and even that wasn't exactly front-page news at the time. Yet Karras became absolutely crucial when Freddie Freeman was dealing with injuries. He stepped up in a major way, provided stability in the lineup, and proved to be one of the most underrated acquisitions of the entire season. Then the Dodgers tried to get cute with some roster maneuvering after the season, non-tendering Karras in hopes of sneaking him through waivers and re-signing him to a cheaper deal later. But the Cincinnati Reds swooped in immediately and claimed him off waivers. That was a calculated risk that didn't work out, but that's baseball. Sometimes those gambles pay off and sometimes they don't. The point is that the Dodgers have a very specific process, a very deliberate approach to roster building, and it works more often than not. One of our subscribers left a comment that I think perfectly encapsulates the Dodgers' philosophy, and I want to read it because it's spot on. They wrote, "The Dodgers' MO has never been to jump into the mud wrestling pit with 20 other GMs fighting over the same players. Their practice is to go carefully and quietly after a handful of guys they know will fit the team and actually improve it. They whiffed on Tanner Scott and Kirby Yates in the bullpen last year, so I don't see LA throwing money at people and just expecting it to work out. If a big name is wanted by enough teams that only money will hook him, I think Friedman this year will look long and hard at recent physicals